In a few hours, I think it's about 4 to 5 billion people will probably be watching the FIFA World Cup final. It's the greatest event in sport, and it's good. It brings families together. I'll be watching it with my family. I'm excited for the game. I'm wearing an Argentina jersey. I love watching Messi. He brings such joy to me just by watching someone, you know, in their full creativity and enjoying an act. It's a game at the end of the day, but to see someone bring so much magic into it and express themselves with it and to transcend the game and to excel at it it's a marvel to watch. So I want to start off by saying there's nothing wrong with games, with sport, with entertainment, with singing, with movies, with acting, watching a Wimbledon final. There's nothing wrong with watching F1, or you might have a favorite model or fashion designer. I have no idea. Those things are not necessarily bad in and of themselves. I'm going to be screaming for Argentina in a few hours. But there is a major danger that these things bring to us. We, how often do we end up worshipping celebrities? How easy is it for me to worship Lionel Messi because he's the greatest footballer? Now I put him on this massive pedestal, and people say it's godlike. We should bow down and worship him because he excels at this sport that we all love so much. And how do we end up spending our time when this happens? You'll see people in comment sections either praising Messi, heaping all their praise on him. They've got their rooms filled with 10 different Messi shirts. But then what you actually see from the person doing this, they might just be sitting on their phone all day, consuming Messi content. Every comment section, Messi is the best, Messi is the best. And then you must question, what are they actually doing with their lives? And this is something I noticed in myself 4 years ago at the World Cup. The entire world wanted Lionel Messi to win this World Cup, including me. And I felt so invested in it, as if it was myself winning this World Cup. This is where the danger begins. We win or lose according to someone else's success and failures. And then we actually lose our own sense of self. And this is why you'll have people saying, oh, Messi is unbelievably talented. He's godlike. We mortals could never aspire to be like him. We should sit down, do nothing, and worship him. That's essentially what happens. And I'm using extreme language, but to devote so much of your energy, your identity, to someone who doesn't even know your name is when we begin to delve into some sort of worship. And when I say worship, I mean putting them in the highest position, the highest priority. You forget your own life. You forget your own ability to achieve, to be creative, to excel in something. And I started realizing this is the trap that sport can leave you in. You are living off of someone else's success. You are living off of someone else's creativity and expression. What are you doing? How are you bringing anything into the world? What are you wanting to succeed in? How are you going to try and make people happy with what has been given to you? You've got things you can do. And remember, a lot of these successful sportsmen, actors or whatever, they grow up in poverty sometimes. And they had to work to get to where they are. And it actually takes away to say these people are just excessively talented. They were mortals exactly like you and decided they wanted to achieve. So the question you have to ask yourself is, this is the reality when, okay, Messi will win the World Cup today and I'll cheer. And then my life goes on tomorrow. Am I just going to gloat in his success. I'm going to university tomorrow. My life is going to begin again. And this is the danger of, let's use keeping up with the Kardashians as an example. We're going to sit for hours keeping up with people who don't know us while we're here doing nothing, watching them going on about how beautiful they are, while we ourselves are doing nothing. Fundamentally, just consuming. And I don't think we are meant to just be consumers. Entertainment teaches us to sit and do nothing, consume, and feel satisfied with consumption. We're going to buy their products. We're going to give them viewership. And this is when I watched the Rocky movies, it made me realize something. The point of the Rocky movie is not just to show you, look, one odd person can climb up the mountain. Like Sylvester Stallone was actually in poverty and he had to create this movie. He was those success stories. And when you watch Rocky, it can be like, oh wow, some people are just extraordinary. They're just alien, they godlike. And it's the same way when people talk about the saints of the church. Oh wow, who could be like a saint? The entire point of these motivational movies like Rocky, the entire point of the lives of the saints, is so that you can imitate them. As soon as we start putting them on these pedestals as godlike, when we start worshipping them, we are doing two things. We're trying to say, who could possibly be like them? It's extraordinary. And we're also saying, I'm not worthy enough to do what they've done. And the point of the saints, for example, is to say, these are sinners like yourself that have chosen the grace of God. Rocky, for example, could have bowed down in defeat, but said, no, I will do what it takes to succeed. And that is the ultimate choice. And Kierkegaard says something like this. It's the biggest fear of people is to know their potential. And when we see people like Messi and these famous actors, singers, or whatever, we are reminded of our potentials, of this creative aspect, this ability to achieve and to be disciplined and work hard. Rafa Nadal is an example of someone obsessed with discipline. Look what he's done in the sport of tennis. And it reminds us, and it terrifies us, of the burden of success. We all want to be successful, but none of us want the burden of getting there. And at the end of the day, it's just sport. It's just acting. It's just entertainment. And I'm not saying you have to become a great sportsman or a great entertainer. That is not at all what I'm saying. In fact, I think there are perhaps more subtle and valuable things in life, such as devoting yourself to your family or devoting yourself to the poor. I'm not saying, my point is, we should never have this mindset of others will succeed, but not I. Others will work hard, but not I. Others will have these massive success stories. Every life is a success story if you choose to not bow down to the burdens of life. And I think the trap that we end up in is living off the success of others, living off the beauty of others, living off the creativity of others, living off the discipline and success stories of others, and deciding we are not worthy, but we're going to make the things that we aspire but aren't willing to work for our identity. And we're going to stick with the ideal and not take the small steps every day in our lives to achieve in whatever meaningful things that we have in our lives. We all have meaningful things that scream out to us in our lives. Whether you want to become a great poet, whether you want to become a writer, whether you want to devote yourself to your family, towards children, towards your career, impacting the world, whatever it is, there is something in your life that screams out as meaningful. There are problems that you are wanting to solve, and you put it off all the time, and then you go and look at all the other people that have been success stories, and you live off of that, and you begin to worship them and say, oh, who could be like them? And like, I think, who are the greatest examples in the world, the lives of the saints. The point is not just to bow down and worship them. Christ is the one to worship. The saints are to tell us, look what Christ has done to people. Look at how sinners, people who have had nothing going for them, have been able to revamp their lives by clothing themselves in the virtue of Christ, disciplining themselves in these virtues, learning to strive upwards despite the suffering and burdens that come your way. So enjoy your sport. Enjoy the beauty and creativity that the world expresses to you. But remember, they are humans as well, and you can do it the same. You can be rocky, you can be messy, you can be a saint. Remember that. Don't think so little of yourself. Look at the potential you have, despite the sin, despite the traumas of your past, despite anything that has held you back. You can always choose to be a success story. And it doesn't mean being famous. It doesn't mean having millions of people around the world bowing down and saying how amazing you are. But it's you in yourself knowing that you have strived towards the things that are meaningful to you, and you've done it in the greatest capacity possible. And I recommend you look at the lives of the saints, you look at the church, and you look towards Christ, and you see how these virtues of Christ have impacted the world. Christ alone must be our adoration. And when we worship mortal, temporary things like sport, like celebrities, these people who will come and go, they will rot, their flesh will become dust. How are you going to let the eternal Christ transform your life? That is the greatest question you must ask yourself. God bless. And remember, this is a problem I deal with myself. And it's because I've had this problem that I'm making this video.